What's going on, everybody? You're watching the Iron Gordon channel. Thank you for being here. Today, we're going to make a white helmet look like a white wrapper. Not this white wrapper.
That's an awfully hot coffee pot.
More like this white wrapper. From a brand called White Rabbit. Again, not this white rabbit, this white rabbit. I don't know, whatever. Let's get into the project. Okay, so to start things off, I'm going to take apart the helmet and strip it of anything that's going to get in the way of my paint job. And before anyone says anything to me about setting the helmet down on the workbench, I'm not super concerned about scratching this thing before I put a brand new paint job on it. I see you in the comments. Relax. After I'm done pulling everything apart that'll come off the helmet, I give it a quick wipe down with isopropyl alcohol before I start sanding the factory finish. I do this to clean off any polishes or grease or human goo that might be on the surface, so I don't sand any of that stuff into the paint and then it comes back to haunt me later. Then I give it a quick rub down with a maroon Scotch-Brite pad, which is about the equivalent of 400 grit sandpaper. All I'm wanting to do here is give the factory finish a good scuff so that the new paint has something to stick to. I'm knocking down all of the shine and making the entire surface have a nice matte finish, and being careful not to sand the edges too heavily, since that's where the paint will wear down the quickest. Next, I started laying down my blue painter's masking tape, tracing along the rubber gasket and the bolt holes and the vents. It's important that you cover up the vents so that the paint doesn't get inside the foam or the padding of the helmet. Also, I masked off the Sparkle logo that has the make and model of the helmet so that this info is available from the outside if it's ever needed. And one more quick scuff on some areas that need a little bit more attention, and one more quick bath in some alcohol before moving to paint. Hey everybody, modern day Iron Gordon here. I have some bad news. See, I painted this helmet back in 2020, so if we fast forward to today in 2024, I'm definitely missing some footage. But not to worry, I will do my absolute best to try to explain what exactly I did here. So, after the helmet was prepped, I went ahead and shot it with some Rust-Oleum white spray paint. I started with some real light tack coats, let that dry for about 10 minutes, then I hit it with another light coat, and then I hit it with another, and another, until I had about 5 coats of color on the helmet. Then I let that dry for a few days. See, that's where a lot of you guys mess up. You try to do one big heavy coat all at once. You have to start with a nice even light coat and let it flash off for 10 minutes to an hour between each coat, depending on the temperature and humidity of your area. You just gotta be patient with the paint. Let the paint do the work for you. Otherwise, you're stuck with a bigger mess and just a whole lot of regrets. Kinda looks like the Green Ranger. Next, I had to make my stencil artwork. I'm going to use a vinyl plotter to make my stencils. So what I had to do was I used Illustrator to redraw my images and turn them into vector artwork, which is art that the vinyl plotter understands. Using a vinyl plotter, I've used it before in some old videos. It takes the vector art that I just made and cuts it into the vinyl material. I happen to have my own, but if you wanted to get some custom work done, you might be able to get a local sign shop or find somebody maybe on Etsy that would be willing to plot it out for you. I'm going to link a reasonably priced one in the description below if you want to make a jump into getting one of these. Okay, I think that's it. Back to 2020. Now that my stencils are cut, I started off with some text on the side of the helmet that the client wanted. I just matched the brand font to make the phrase that he asked for, and I'm going to use an airbrush on these stencils since it's a little bit easier to control than spray paint. I'm also going to give all the graphics on the helmet a little bit of a distressed feel that's going to better match the offset lithography printing look of the wrapper. Like here you can see that I'm spraying down some paint and then dabbing it away with a paper towel to remove some of the wet paint. And then I'm going to layer back over that with some more paint just to keep giving the paint more depth. After I finished up the phrase, I started laying down some pinstripe masking tape to create the stripes that are also in the logo branding. I'm going to use some small pieces of vinyl to create a jagged edge to continue the look of a distressed candy wrapper. This is getting airbrushed with blue while I do the same layering effects that I mentioned before. Okay, and the next step is where I attach a piece of Kraft Singles cheese to the side of the helmet. Now it's important that you use a hairdryer to melt the cheese to the helmet to get the best adhesion possible. This is the main event. This is the rabbit logo. I remember this was like super hard to lay down and get smooth. Like it has more wrinkles in it than a senior citizen home. I was laying down the vinyl with application tape on it so the stencil pieces didn't come apart. Once it was applied, I started peeling off the pieces that got paint next. Using an airbrush like this to lay down larger blocks of color is most likely an improper technique, but since I was trying not to have full opacity with every single layer and I was also blotting out the wet paint with a paper towel, it kind of made more sense to do it like this instead of using something like spray paint. Once I got everything airbrushed and peeled off all the stencil material, I gave it all another rub down with a maroon Scotch-Brite pad just to knock down any of the tall edges and continue the distressed look by sanding through some of the paint a little bit more and give it a little bit more of a worn look. Now you have to remember that the airbrush paint that I used is acrylic, so it's a water-based paint, so it's not going to be weather durable. Like if this were to get too wet, that paint would start to run and bleed all over the place.
We got a bleeder!
That's why when everything was done and finalized, I shot it with this Spray Max 2K Clear. The 2K Clear is a really good, strong, durable aerosol spray clear. It is UV resistant, it's automotive grade. You can cut and buff it, wax it, just like you would a vehicle, but it is really dangerous for you, so you gotta use a respirator, do it sprayed outside. I don't know, just use your brain, don't inhale the paint. I sprayed on about 5 coats, starting with a nice light tack coat, building my way up to a nice thick clear coat. Let that thing dry for about 24 hours, and you know what guys? I think it's finished. There it is, another helmet in the books. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to let me know that you have 45 years of painting rabbits on the side of helmets experience, and let me know all the ways I did it wrong. If you like this kind of content, check out my other helmet videos. I got them linked right here for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today.